name's Paul Wimbush. I am the project coordinator for the Lammas Ecovillage in North Pembrokeshire. I've been involved since August 2005. It's been a long journey, it's been a very rewarding journey. One of the key things that we needed to do was to create a project that was able to work within a structure that a government body could understand, a kind of a framework whereby we could assure government bodies that we were serious, that we were going to be working the land properly, and that we were not going to set a precedent, and that we were going to monitor ourselves and control ourselves on an ongoing basis. Lammas was fortunate in that a local policy was formed called low impact development, and that provided a really useful framework for us to work around and enabled us to present our project to the government in a way and that they could say yes to. To date, that's been the biggest obstacle, partly because the planning system here in the UK is so archaic and old, and so that's one of our biggest problems. In terms of setting up the project and the internal dynamics, the thing that I would suggest is get really clear from the beginning and offer people a clear vision which gives them social freedom and security. So the social freedom side of things, people need to be able to make their own choices. If there comes a day when they need to go to McDonald's to eat food, they will need to be able to go to McDonald's to eat food and not feel pressured by the rest of the community that that's wrong. It's no good making people feel wrong. At different stages in different people's lives, people are able to give more and are able to be more, or not. You know, if you've got a young baby, or if you're old, you've got different things that you can give and different ways that you can be. So that social freedom is really important. And the other thing is legal security. There's been lots of communities and stuff which has started off with the kind of woolly friendships. I would say no, get really clear from the beginning, offer people 5 acres, that's yours, or a leasehold of 1,000 years, that's yours, where it's all clearly written down and people pay money and there's a clear legal exchange and a solid legal basis. So that's my bits of advice about starting an ecovillage, and just persevere and good luck. You know, it only takes a few people with a strong vision. Lammas we articulated our vision through the website. I didn't know anybody in the project before it began. We've all come together through the website and through the project, you know, united by a clear, articulated vision. And the vision can be very simple, because just the idea of living on the land is very attractive. It's kind of deep in our kind of souls, really. But you need a clear framework which is acceptable to mainstream. One thing that Lammas has strived to do as well is enable people to get mortgages. So to create a project that's sufficiently mainstream so that people can take it to a building society or a bank and get loans against it. So in Lammas's case, we've got 1,000-year leasehold. So a family buys a leasehold, £35,000. They then, as long as they stay within the rules of the project, which are as broad as we can make them, whilst keeping the project loosely low impact, then they have security. And when they've had enough, they can just sell on their leasehold for whatever they like to another person. If they haven't got enough money to buy the leasehold in the first place, they can get a mortgage from a bank. So that's how the approach that we've taken and we've operated, and it's hybrid. It came about as a hybrid between the normal village model that you see all around Europe, combined with kind of wisdom or learnings from alternative communities, places like Tipi Valley or Holtzfield or Findhorn or all these other alternative communities that have a lot to offer. Good luck.
So you're asking how I came to Lammas? Well, the short story is my wife showed me an article about over 2 years ago that featured, it was written by Jasmine Seville, wife of Simon, partner of Simon, and it was about their experience of building the woodland house, which is how a lot of people, I think, have come to know the project. And I had just done this kind of ceremony ritual where I was just kind of clearing out. It was a big clearing out. And the very next morning is when my wife came to me with this article from Green Parent magazine. And it was about how Simon and his father-in-law had spent 6 weeks and £3,000 building what I thought was a gorgeous woodland home for them. Small, but suitable for them and their family for 2 years. They lived there for 2 years. And my wife said, I'd be interested in something like this. And in this clear space where I was like, okay, let's do that. And I just took that ball and ran with it. I mean, she always has the ideas, the inspiration, and I just take it and run. So I contacted Simon immediately and said, can I come see your house? He said, of course. I met him and just fell in love with the guy and really his family. And he said, well, if you're interested in this house and this kind of building, you might be interested in the Lammas project. There aren't any spaces open right now, but people will probably drop out over time because we've got a long road to go. And if they do, then there might be a space for you. And someone did drop out. There was a space for us. We put in an application and we were accepted for plot 4. And that's basically how we came to Lammas. I mean, previously to that, we'd lived in community before, but it was rather unintentional community, not intentional community. And there was no sense of proprietorship, no ownership. And it wasn't really made for families. It was made for single people finding themselves, really. It was an institute. And so I'd been looking for community life. This was in California. And we moved here to the UK, and for a number, two years basically, I was looking for some kind of community home where we could have a sense of ownership of some kind, and be with people who were intentionally together focused on creating something. So that's basically what we found here in Lammas. We own our plot of land and we work it with a lot of help from other people in the project, and we have a group of people here who are very, very focused on building what we're building. So yeah, it's beautiful. Really nice. Well, our plan is based on two land-based enterprises. One is worm composting, vermiculture. Hopefully getting income, and I'm researching this now. I've been talking to some people who have more information about this, but that both on the incoming stream, so there are grants and even funds available for people who are willing to collect organic waste. Something like 1/3 of all waste that goes into the landfill in this country is fully compostable household waste. And landfill taxes are doubling in the next 2-3 years. And of course it's just unsustainable. We can't keep throwing things into the ground. So there's this in this incoming stream of waste, there's possibly money to be made. Certainly there is money to be made in the worms themselves, which can be sold to people who fish, people who compost, and in the compost itself, in the worm castings, the actual excrement of the worms, which is incredibly rich natural fertilizer. And this land needs, I didn't realize how rich in terms of biodiversity and wildlife this land is. And when I say land, I mean the grass, just all these pastures. Every square meter, if you look, there are frogs and there are slugs and there are centipedes and caterpillars and earthworms like crazy, just huge amounts. So the land hasn't been cultivated in 20 years or something. It's just been used for grazing, so it's highly compacted and quite acidic. But there's a lot of potential here, huge amount of potential. So that's one stream, and that's one that I'm really interested in, is basically this whole idea of waste in general, that we are the only creatures on the planet that have systems that produce waste. There's no such thing as waste in the natural world. And within permaculture, of course, waste is any output from a system that's not reused as an input. And there's so many ways that we could be reusing these outputs and not creating them in the first place. Yeah, so I'm very interested in waste, what that is, and how we work with that. The other is herbs, organic garlic. There's currently no producers of organic garlic in Pembrokeshire, this county. And herbs, parsley, basil, those kinds of things organically produced are pretty rare to find in this area of the world. So we're looking at ways to produce those and make value-added products based on garlic and herbs, oils and pastes, pestos, things like that.
I'm probably one of the only ones who's already got my living going. Because I weave willow, I do workshops in schools and for communities and stuff. And so basically I've planted 1,000 willow trees, and I've just harvested my first ones. So they were only planted in February. And obviously coppicing willow is very sustainable, and every year there'll be more and more willow because it's so wonderful. And yeah, so I've already got a sort of demand for my services, and so willow's the main thing. We will also be doing workshops for people with learning disabilities, adults with learning disabilities. So for local social services, and probably a couple of other things, but mainly willow. Some of the workshops will be with willow. This is going to be my workshop, the Roundhouse, and but Nigel does woodworking, so he'll do some carpentry. He does things like making just really simple benches. He set up a project in London before we moved out to Wales, which was using reclaimed wood from the Thames and turning it into furniture, so chairs and benches and things. So it'll be basic woodworking as well, which is why I get crazy things like that drill, because it's a wonderful hand tool. So trying to use hand tools, not pound tools. Yeah.
Oh, mine's quite simple. I produce everything I can from the land: water, fuel, as much food as I can, electric. And then I also have a small business on the top. And my small business is going to be raspberries, blueberries, hazelnuts, and plums, possibly some apples. So soft fruit, top fruit and nuts. In the long term, I'd like to turn that into juices and maybe develop that, but just starting simple. So I will have about 1.5 acres planted up just to bring in some cash enterprise. And in a way, that's one of the things that Lammas has done, in that the way the planning framework is, each of the families, as well as kind of living off the land, has to have some kind of enterprise. As long as it's related to the land, it can be craft, it can be growing meat, it can be growing fruit, it can be cooking pies, it can be making baskets or clothes using wool. But as long as there's something to kind of give or trade with the wider world. And I think that's quite a good idea. It certainly helps the government a lot feel justified in setting aside agricultural land for permaculture, because then the project as a whole will have lots and lots of things that it's producing, and that people can quickly and easily see, hey, this is good, and it also gives people a way to support and interact. Okay, well, just good luck. Yeah, good luck.